Hello, patriots, praying citizens, and truth seekers. Today it's my honor to have Bob Kudla of Trade Genius with me to talk about the stranger than strange times we're living in and the financial markets. Bob's full of great information. He's incredibly red-pilled, and he's going to give us the 40,000-foot view, or what he calls the macro view, of what we can expect going forward. Bob, welcome to my channel.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So, can we start off with this zany idea of the Democrats wanting to impeach the president? It's not going to get them anywhere. The polls are showing that it's not good for them politically. So, what do you think they're trying to do with this?
You know, the Democrats, I should clarify, the left wing and the leftists in this country are so rage filled right now that they can't see straight. And to them, it's really all about retribution and revenge. But there's another piece to this too, Lori, is that they're hiding some secrets that Trump is exposing, and I think it's freaking them out. I mean, this Ukraine thing has basically been a pot of gold for the Democrats' children to go in there and be able to become millionaires by doing no work just because they're related to the leadership of the Democratic Party. And I think they're really, really upset with that whole process. And they've been looking since the beginning. But you just simply have to look at what happened in Britain, and the same thing. They're rage filled in Europe about Brexit. They're rage filled in Britain about the right. And what happens? People who normally would vote Labour crossed over and voted for Tories. And I think we're going to see the same thing here. I don't think they're thinking straight, Lori.
I absolutely agree with you. And I heard, I mean, maybe this was about a year ago, that there were certain people in Congress that had to go on extra medication because of probably the fact that Trump is giving them headaches beyond belief, and whatever insanity they've got going on is only getting worse. So they obviously, the stakes for them are greater to even attempt to impeach this president, and they're staking their entire political careers on it. But the people, like we saw in England, are not putting up with it. And so do you think that money is at the bottom of everything?
Oh, with the left, it's power and money, and they kind of go hand in hand with each other. I think they really, really desire, and I really believe in their hearts that they think that they have all the right answers, and so they view normal people with contempt. And so, yeah, I mean, look at the people running the show there too. I mean, these are the most out of touch people there is. But the Lord says that they'll give these people over to reprobate minds. So we're probably just seeing prophecy being revealed right in front of us.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's like he's just given them all the quail that they want, and it's gonna be the end of them. So in the meantime, we can take advantage of this kind of stuff with the financial markets, with things that I'm not super versed in, but you are. And that was one of the reasons I was so happy to have you on the show to talk to us about, as people who believe in good triumphing over evil, are there ways that we can take advantage of the situation the way it is?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, for your listeners, and if you've not heard me before, there's very few things that move the stock market. So you can set impeachment aside. It's not going to happen. It's going to be a circus that Trump will probably use to his advantage. No Republican in their right mind that wants to be reelected is going to support the conviction, and it's going to be just like Clinton all over again. It's going to backfire. So set that off to the side. The other thing you can move off to the side now too is all this crazy talk about Green New Deal and climate change. The British election ended that whole show. Countries around the world do not want to put money up to give to other countries when they're all broke. So the thing that everybody needs to focus on is the Fed. And what the Fed has decided to do is, in fact, central banks around the world are just flooding the economies with cash. And it's flowing through the banks and the banks are taking that and they're flowing it into the stock markets around the world, and they're hoping for what they call a trickle down. But what's going to end up happening, Lori, is that the money's going to leak out of the stock market because it's already really extremely overvalued
Mm-hmm.
where it is. You can't fight the Fed. So what you have to do is you have to look to see where the money's going to leak out to. And in the past, that money's leaked out into energy, into commodities, and into gold and silver. And we see that happening as we speak. Gold, oil is over $60 a barrel again. Gold, the bankers like to sell it. They can't anymore. And then we've seen moves now with copper and steel coming up as well. So what we tell our subscribers at Trade Genius is that that's where we're focusing on looking for the opportunities to make money. And the broad market is probably overdone. You know, the technology names
Mm-hmm.
and companies that ran up for the last 10 years are pretty much finished.
So when you say that the stock market or the Fed is giving the bankers a lot of cash, what does that look like?
Well, what they do is the banks pledge uh, the um, the treasury bills and treasury bonds that they buy, and what they do, they exchange those for cash. So what happens in with the banking system is that there's banks out there called prime brokers, and they're required to buy every treasury that our treasury department, because we're running deficits every year, Lori, they have to buy every bond that goes on sale if the private market doesn't buy it. And so in being able to do so, then they were able to take those bonds and they hand them right back to the back to the central bankers. And what the central bankers do then is hand them back cash. And then when they have the cash, they usually speculate with that because they're not really lending people any money anymore because everybody's broke. So what they do with that cash is they speculate with it
Mm.
because they get to leverage the money. So like JP Morgan's leveraged 13 to 1. So every dollar deposit they have, they push $13 out into the economy. And so what they do then is they push that out into the stock market, and that's what lifts the stock market. But at some point, stocks get too overvalued, so then they start looking for other places for that money to go, and it's going to leak then into what they call the hard assets, and that's usually what ends all these bull markets. In 2007, 2008, food prices and energy prices went up spectacularly, like over $100 for oil, and then eventually it crashed the market because people couldn't afford it. Then they couldn't pay their mortgages. You know that whole
I
story,
do.
and we're coming back. We're coming back around to that way again, but this time we call it the everything bubble. So people don't have any reserves anymore. So any kind of down movement in the economy will just set the whole thing right over an edge. And if you raise oil up $10, $20 a barrel, people can't get to work. The whole French yellow jacket movement is because they wanted to tax oil and diesel another 4 cents a gallon or a liter over there, and it set the country onto a path of revolution. So that's how tight it is for people. I'm not telling everybody listening something they don't already know, and that's why the Fed is trying to, how do we do this in such a way to make everything look good so people keep spending, but at some point they just basically run out of runway, and you're pushing on a string, and then things get too expensive and everything collapses in. We're about a year out from that,
Hmm.
but that's the stage we're in right now.
Okay, so going forward, what do you think Trump is going to try to do about that?
Well, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to put together a huge stimulus package. In fact, today the House pushed out one big spending bill, and Trump's going to probably add on to it infrastructure spending,
Are you
and
talking
then
about part two of that omnibus, or what they're calling the minibus of the spending?
yeah, I haven't seen the details yet because I've been trading all day, but I saw a news flash pop up on my screen. But Trump's going to add to that. And the other thing they're going to do is they're going to take it out of the hide of the Chinese, the Germans, the Japanese by keep collapsing trade. So
Hmm.
they're going to bring more jobs into the country, raise wage inflation, and try to see if they can reignite an economic boom here in the United States to be able to pay for all the deficit spending. It's to be seen, but the math math does not favor a successful outcome.
So do you think we're looking at another 2008 bust again?
Yeah, at some point, I think when we get into 2021, after the election, I think you'll see us go into recession, and then I think you'll see the stock market roll over pretty hard.
Mm. Okay, so with that in mind, what any advice for people, just a normal person out there?
Yeah, so I mean, look, there's always a bull market somewhere. So what we look at Trade Genius is that we have an algorithm that tells us what sectors of the market and what stocks in those sectors are going to move. And we see the buy signals coming in. And so we're always chasing those stocks and those sectors that are going to move higher. Even in a bear market, there are sectors of the market that do well.
Mm-hmm.
And all we do is we just rotate into those stocks and rotate into those sectors. And then we teach people how to do that. We also provide the trade signals for them, and then we have trading rooms where people can come into the rooms and ask questions from brand new traders who've never traded before. We have a room called the coaching room where people can come in and ask questions they may not feel comfortable asking in a bigger audience,
Mm-hmm.
all the way to really, really experienced traders, which we call the VIP room, where we're trading futures and other more esoteric kind of assets where that you can really leverage and make a lot of money. And then we just have the regular trading rooms, and we trade the whole gamut. We trade stocks, we trade cryptocurrencies as well, and then we trade ETFs and futures. So whatever people like to trade, we were able to help them do that. And then what I did for you, Lori, I forwarded you over our track record, and then also some of the comments just in the last 3 days from some of the traders, so people get a flavor for who we are and how well we do. And we've been doing this for a long time. I've been trading since 1991, and my corporate background is in mergers and acquisitions and business development. So I have a pretty good eye as to where the hockey puck likes to go, and I like to try to stay in front of that. And that's where you make the most money, when you can see the next move and position yourself for that move. And what I just discussed a couple minutes ago was where we think things are going to go. If the Fed stops, then the whole thing grinds to a halt, and then we just have to shift gears. But that's suicide for them. Once they stop, they're not going to be needed anymore. And these guys love their power and their privilege too much, so they're gonna try to inflate their way out of this problem, but
I,
they'll eventually fail.
I heard you say in another interview that, at least this is what, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that nobody knows who really owns the Fed.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a shell game. So there are like 19 banks that are associated with the Federal Reserve that have ownership, what's called preferred positions, stock positions in the central bank of the United States. Some of them are foreign, but it goes even deeper than that. The people who own the preferred shares of the banks are the true owners of the central bank of the United States. So it could be anybody.
Mm.
It could be a Saudi sheik. It could be Putin. We don't know. Whoever owns those shares owns those banks, and those banks own the Federal Reserve. So it's a private cartel, and so there's no requirement that they have to be U.S. citizens that have these preferred shares. In fact, Citicorp, their biggest shareholder is one of the Saudi princes.
Well, it's just
So
like Twitter. I mean, the number, we learned this after the Las Vegas shooting, that it was that the guy that Trump calls Dopey Prince. I mean, he was the one of the primary owners of Twitter. I mean, who knew that? It's like they can do all
yeah,
kinds of stuff and we don't know.
yeah, there's no register of stock ownership unless they own over a certain amount of shares. Then they have to file, individually. But there's a lot of ways people hide around that stuff and get away with it. And not just that, but real estate too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of shell companies and a lot of chances for mischief, Lori. So
Yeah, and they're about to be exposed, I hope. I mean, I know a lot of my listeners would agree with this statement, that they would love to see us return to a gold standard and no more Fed. I don't know if that's even possible. Like you said, these people are incredibly powerful, and their power and their money are all tied together. And how far can President Trump push this?
Well, look, if they screw up, he'll have a very good case. The world is getting more nationalistic. The left likes to make that a dirty word because they fear what that means, loss of global control. But you see it in the British election, you see it with the French, okay? The Chinese, the people there get nationalistic. The Japanese have always been nationalistic. The United States, they fear, will turn that way too. And then when people see that, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I don't want my manufacturing somewhere else. I don't want the banks to be owned by another country. And so Trump's been pushing on them pretty hard. I personally think that that would not be one of his agenda items that he would love to get through before he's out of office. And maybe that's one of the things that they fear, is because there's a lot of things that can happen inside that central bank that we have no visibility to. Sweetheart deals and money going to right now the repo thing could be, a lot of it could be going to China or to prop up German banks, and that happened in 2008. So we don't have visibility here, and the Fed knows if they screw up, there'll be such political pressure on them because all eyes are on them now, that they would lose a lot of power. So they're running a little scared too, and that's why Trump's been able to bully them a little bit into trying to drive the interest rates down. I don't think he was their first choice, and I think they wanted to do what they did to George Bush to him, in terms of trying to make a recession happen and blame him. But he got out in front of that, and now the Fed is front and center, and they're in the news, and so it's really going to be up to them how well they stay in power. But I think they're going to screw up, Lori, and this whole thing will probably come down to a house of cards, and we will reset in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it's gold backed. I don't know if it's commodity backed, or I don't know if it's trade backed. But the fiat system is not going to last. It'll be done before my life is over. That's for sure.
Wow. Well, that's pretty prophetic right there. And that would be interesting if there's a Donald Trump Jr. candidacy in 2024 to carry that whole thing forward, and who knows how much havoc he could wreak on the central bankers and the cabal that's running things. So, all right. So I years ago looked into Trade Genius, and I don't know what happened. Whatever. I got busy doing something else. So I want you to explain to somebody who's like me. I'm an aging boomer, right? But I still have a lot of fight left in me. And what for? Like this would make a great Christmas present for somebody that maybe is retired and they want to take a look. Maybe I can do a little bit with the stock market or with cryptocurrencies. What would you say to someone like that?
Well, first of all, I'd say you're a seasoned boomer, not an aging one. And yeah, so what we do at Trade Genius is we educate people, we inform them, and then we partner with them and help them become successful at trading. Eventually, we'll teach you how to fish, if you will. At the same time, we'll give you fish and show you the trades that are working. And then eventually we'll get you to the point where you feel very confident that you could trade on your own, but you always have the trading rooms in which to fall back on. So what we do is we have trading rooms for stocks, we have trading rooms for cryptocurrencies. Believe it or not, a lot of boomers like to trade cryptocurrencies and not just a young person's game. And then what we do is we also provide trading signals. So like I said, our algorithm will present to me a number of different opportunities every day. I look for the best one or two to share, and I push those out. They come out via text message. I push them out into the trading rooms, which are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we help them understand like what would be a good place to take profit, where would be a place to set a stop in case the trade doesn't work out. And then we also educate. We have training classes all the time, and we have training courses that we do. And like I said, we have those specialized rooms. So it doesn't matter. I would say probably 30 to 40% of the people that come on board with Trade Genius have never traded before, really, or if they did it kind of as a hobby, and there's time to get more serious about it. And there's definitely a way to do it. It's not hard. You just have to follow a process, and you'll make money nearly every day in the stock market.
Well, it sounds good. I did see those little notes that you sent me, and those will be good for people to read. Just little snippets that were from today on somebody who had some success. A couple of people. Yeah, and it's nice to have a reward for your labor, which to educate yourself and then to take that and invest it in your future and your financial well-being.
Yeah, look, if you made $100 a day in the stock market, you're making $20,000 a year. So you don't have to be, Joe Trader and do all this crazy stuff. There's a few really good trades every day, and you just keep taking those trades. If you just made 3% a week in the stock market, that's 150% a year. So it's not difficult to have a good return in trading. And we try to find those stocks that try to make 3% in a week and deliver those up on a consistent basis. And we don't get greedy. We take the profit. We look for the next trade. We call it just grinding it every day. You don't have to hit home runs, just hit singles and doubles. But Laura, we put together a Christmas special for you guys too. So if you go to tradelikeagenius.com and then you look at the bundles, we put together 6 bundles for people, all the way from beginners to advanced traders, whether they want to trade stocks or cryptocurrencies. And we pre-discounted those for your listeners if they take advantage of it before Saturday.
All right. That's awesome. And I'll get this video up as quick as I can so people can take a look at that. Well, is there anything else any other gems that you want to give us?
Yeah, just keep your eye on the prize. Don't let the news media distract you. Impeachment's a non-issue. Green New Deal's a non-issue. All about the Fed. If Trump doesn't screw up, he'll get reelected, and he'll continue to do the reforms that this country requires, and to keep trying to push this country forward. So that's what I'm looking at. That's how we see it, and so far, that's all playing out as we see it going into 2020.
Well, great. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing some of your knowledge, incredible knowledge, with this audience and with me. And I will be putting those links in the description box, so anybody who's interested can go ahead and check that out. So, Bob, thanks so much for being with me.
Oh, you're welcome, Lori. Have a great day.
You too. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.